Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're your shortcut to understanding some of the big forces shaping our world. Today, we're really pulling back the curtain on one of the globe's most, well, consistently tricky relationships, the U.S. and Iran.
Yeah, it's a relationship with incredibly deep history, and it's constantly in the headlines
It
today.
clearly is.
Absolutely. And our goal here for this deep dive is to kind of cut through the noise. We want to get to the core reasons behind all that tension,
Right.
really help you understand why this conflict seems to just keep going based on the sources we've looked at.
Okay, let's do that. So, tracing it back, I mean, if we're talking U.S. Iran relations, the
Right.
Big Bang, the starting point, it has to be 1979, right? The Iranian Revolution.
Exactly. That's the place to start.
So, what happened there? Why was it such a seismic event?
Well, it's fascinating because it was just a complete upheaval. Before 79, you had Iran ruled by the Shah. And he was backed by the US. But then the Islamic Revolution just swept him away. And it established an Islamic Republic under Ayatollah Khomeini, who was fiercely anti American.
And the immediate impact,
Oh, immediate and frankly gut wrenching. The storming of the US Embassy in Tehran.
the hostage crisis.
Yeah, not just taking a building, 52 Americans held captive for 444 days.
Incredibly long time.
Agonizing. And for
Yeah.
the US, it was this profound national humiliation, a psychological blow, really. It just seared this deeply hostile tone into the relationship right from the get go.
So, okay, that crisis marks this devastating break. But you mentioned Khomeini, the anti-American stance. It sounds like it wasn't just political, but also deeply ideological.
Oh, absolutely. That ideological chasm is fundamental. You have Iran's new identity as an Islamic theocracy clashing head on with America's, well, secular democracy.
How does that play out?
Well, Iran's government actually started calling the US the Great Satan, which is a powerful revolutionary term. It symbolizes perceived Western interference, uh, imperialism, and a basic opposition to the U.S. presence in the Middle East.
And the U.S. perspective,
Conversely, the U.S. views Iran, particularly its government, as a state sponsor of terrorism.
citing links to groups like Hezbollah, Hamas.
Exactly. Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Palestine groups, the U.S. labels as terrorist, and also various militias in Iraq and Syria that the U.S. sees as furthering Iran's regional influence.
So it's not just disagreement, it's a fundamental clash of worldviews.
Yeah, and perceived threats. It drives almost every interaction they have.
Okay, so with those deep historical ideological rifts,
Mhm.
it almost feels inevitable that something like the nuclear program would become a huge flashpoint. Why that issue specifically?
Right. Well, the nuclear issue, it connects to this bigger picture, this regional power struggle. The U.S. is deeply concerned that Iran is trying to develop nuclear weapons.
Which would destabilize the whole region.
Exactly. Could spark an arms race, threaten U.S. allies like Israel, Saudi Arabia. That's the fear. And this led to that 2015 deal, the JCPOA.
The Iran nuclear deal.
Right. Yeah, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. It was meant to curb Iran's nuclear work in return for lifting sanctions. But then the U.S. pulled out in
They
2018.
reimposed sanctions.
Right, which just ramped up the tensions again. So you see Iran wanting to expand its influence, its power in the region.
And the U.S. trying to limit it.
Precisely. To protect allies, ensure oil keeps flowing. It's like a geopolitical chessboard. They're backing opposite sides in Syria, Yemen, Iraq, Lebanon.
And it's not just proxy stuff, is it? There have been direct confrontations. I mean, the U.S. killing Qasem Soleimani in 2020,
A major escalation.
followed by Iranian attacks on U.S. troops, bases, allies. It feels like a conflict fought on many fronts.
It is. You've got the direct military stuff, but also cyber warfare, those heavy economic sanctions, the proxy battles, it all adds up.
So, boiling it down, how should we understand this?
Well, I think it's crucial to make a distinction here. The US government doesn't really express hatred for the Iranian people as such.
Okay.
Instead, the view is that Iran's leadership and its policies pose a threat to international security, to US interests.
And from Iran's side.
Iran tends to view the US as this almost colonial power, constantly interfering in the region, trying to undermine its government, its sovereignty.
So, these totally conflicting views make finding common ground incredibly hard.
Extremely difficult. Yeah.
So, wrapping this up,
Hmm.
what we're seeing, this constant hostility,
Yeah.
it really stems from this complex mix, doesn't it? History, that 79 revolution, the deep ideological split, the nuclear fears, the regional power plays, and these direct, sometimes bloody confrontations.
Exactly. It's not simple. It has all these deep interlocking layers history, politics, ideology.
A really tangled web.
It is. And
Yeah.
maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to consider. What's really insightful here is how much of this is driven by mutual perceptions of threat, of victimhood, even.
How so?
Well, the U.S. sees Iran's actions as aggressive, destabilizing. But Iran often genuinely sees itself as resisting interference, defending itself against a much larger power.
Right. Two completely different narratives.
Totally different narratives, and they profoundly shape actions and reactions on both sides. So, as you see news about the US and Iran, maybe ask yourself which side's truth is being emphasized here and what perspective might be missing. It gives you a much richer context.
That's a great point. Understanding those underlying narratives is key. Thanks for breaking that down.
My pleasure. It's a critical relationship to understand.
Absolutely. Join us next time on the Deep Dive.